Hello friends, welcome back. We're going to do another sort of get to know me video, but it's also going to be a look back on my year. So a little bit of retrospective, a little bit of just general about me stuff. So today I'm going to talk about all the books I read this year, fiction and nonfiction, and the books are going to be in the order I read them. I'm not going to try ranking them or anything like that, or even giving them like a star or a rating. I'm just going to read them and talk about them, and then you'll know kind of what I like in a book. The first book I read this year was What I Talk About When I Talk About Running by Haruki Murakami, and this is a non-fiction book by an author who typically writes fiction. It's all about his experience with running, and he kind of ties it back into some other things. Like he talks about how running long distances is like writing a novel in some ways, and so I thought it was nice. I had no idea that he has run so many marathons. I can't remember how many he said he ran in the book, but that was released many years ago. I managed to find an article from I think 2013 that said he was up to 27, and I mean that was in 2013. Unless he stopped immediately after, he's probably got a lot more under his belt at this point. I think he's in his 70s, but I doubt that'll stop him. I'm a little ashamed to admit that I haven't read any of Murakami's fiction, but it's on my list. I would really like to. I like the way he does nonfiction a lot, and I think some of the same like storytelling elements are going to be, present in both. The second book I read this year was Seven Blades in Black by Sam Sykes. I love Sam Sykes. Gosh, I think if you made me choose, this might be my favorite book ever. And this was actually a reread because the sequel was released this year. So I read Seven Blades in Black before reading its sequel, which I'll talk about a little bit later. The main character really just ticks all the boxes for me. Her name is Sal the Cacophony, cool name. She's got a magic gun. She's got a lot of deep, gritty emotions, heartbreak, longing. Oh, it's just so good. She's the sort of brooding, damaged character that I love, and she is on a quest for vengeance. So it's just a nice, spicy story, and I like it a lot. It is a fantasy story, if you can figure that out from the magic gun, and the world is really well crafted. It feels whole and real, and I would recommend this book to anybody. The third book I read this year was 10% Happier. This one was a reread as well. I read this book initially years ago. It's by Dan Harris, and it's about his sort of journey with figuring out how meditation can sort of work in a non-religious, non-woo-woo sort of way. And I actually felt like it hit different the second time because I didn't really know anything about meditation the first time I read it, and I feel like I'm kind of in the same place he is, where I kind of get it now. I understand a little bit of the science, and I have sort of accepted it as a thing that, that will help me out. Number 4 is Deep Work by Cal Newport. This one was a popular one in the sort of self-development space. I liked it. I did. I felt like it was a little bit optimistic. So and this is pretty common with self-development books like this, where they kind of think that work is in a vacuum, where if you just sort of commit to this process, it will work out, and it doesn't really take into account the realities that a lot of people face. But I guess who could account for all that? I don't know. You would have to have so many caveats and special cases, but in general, I think the science is solid. I have tried at times to sort of incorporate deep work into my routine, and I don't think I've really succeeded. I think I need to give that a little bit more of a try. The 5th book I read this year was the sequel to Seven Blades in Black, which is 10 Arrows of Iron, obviously also by Sam Sykes. This book had a different sort of vibe than the first one, and I'm not quite sure how to explain how it was different. It was a little bit sadder, a little bit more I don't know, it was a heist rather than a sort of straightforward revenge. And so some of that, I think, caused the different vibes. But I did like it. I still like it. I'm very excited for the third book. I just think that I liked the first book a lot better. The sixth book I read was Atomic Habits, and I will give the same feedback on this book to everyone I meet because I found it so jarring. But the beginning of Atomic Habits starts with a pretty graphic description of a serious injury that James Clear suffered when he was younger, and I found that very unsettling. It involves some eye stuff, and I can't do eye stuff. So I don't really know why a pretty straightforward like productivity book about habit building had to start with that, but it seems like a pretty common thing because the Miracle Morning also started with a description of a car accident. I wouldn't recommend the Miracle Morning, by the way. I have a lot of thoughts about that one, but Atomic Habits was good. I liked it a lot. I feel like everything in it is very actionable, and it's clear cut. It makes sense. I think it's obvious how incorporating these things can sort of streamline your process. Blah blah blah. Can sort of streamline your process. But I just have that one little nitpick. I don't know why it starts with a horror story, but book 7 was Remote Control by Nnedi Okorafor, and this was the first book of Okorafor's that I've read, and I really, really liked it. It almost had a sort of like Ray Bradbury feel to it, in the sense that there's this like emotional dissonance almost. I don't really know, that's probably not the words I want, but the book left me feeling a little bit off balance, a little bit tense, and I liked it. I liked that a lot. I thought it was an interesting way to tell the story, and I will almost certainly pick up more of Nnedi's work. Book number 8 is Everybody Has a Podcast Except You. I love the name of this book. It's written by the McElroys. If you have listened to me talk about anything for like 20 minutes, they will come up. I love the McElroy family, the entire family. The three brothers, Griffin, Justin, and Travis, are kind of my favorite, my waypoint, not waypoint, my entry into the content here. But it's just a book about podcasting, about sort of how to pick a topic, what sort of equipment to get, how to set a schedule. It's good. I do think, I don't know, if you're into podcasting already and you want like a masterclass, I don't think this is it. It's really more of like a beginner. It touches all the different pieces a little bit. If you're brand new and you want to learn about podcasting, it's great. Or if you're just like me, I didn't really want to start a podcast. Of course, now I feel like I need one. I mean, everyone's got a podcast except me. I can't think of anything to podcast about, though, so I haven't started one. But maybe in the future. I don't know. But I liked it. Book 9 was An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. And I had only recently gotten into Vlogbrothers when I read this book. Actually, now that I'm saying that out loud, I think I got into them last year. But anyway, I didn't have a lot of history about kind of what Hank and John Green were doing these days. I read Looking for Alaska probably a million years ago, and I haven't read anything by John Green or Hank Green in the time since, and so I didn't really know what to expect, and I liked this book a lot. It took a little bit of a turn that I wasn't quite expecting, and I think if I had known like sort of Hank's deal a little bit better, I think I would have gotten it. Like, I think it would have made a lot more sense. And that's not to say I didn't like it. It was just like I had built this vision in my brain of what this book was about based on like little snippets of things that I've heard around the internet, and that vision didn't quite match what it actually was. And so it was exciting, a little bit mysterious. It's about some big sculptures showing up across different points in the world kind of overnight, and the kids who are investigating where they came from and why they're there. It covers a lot about social media and kind of the really strange relationship that we have with it. Anyone who uses social media has with it. It can kind of get its claws in you sometimes, but good book. I read the sequel as well, but I didn't get to read it until a little bit later on the list. Number 10 was Unfuck Your Habitat by Rachel Hoffman. I didn't really care for this book. It kind of felt like too surface level to me, or not. I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting. It's about cleaning, and they do put a little star over the fuck part, just, to censor it. And I don't know. I thought it was okay. If you really need help learning how to clean, it could be useful. But I kind of felt like it was a lot of book for not a lot of information. That's just how I felt. You may feel differently. Number 11 is Kushiel's Dart. I like this book a lot. It for some reason I got a slow start on it, and so I actually had to check it out from the library again a second time after returning it, because I ran out of time on my borrow from the library. But I'm really glad I finished it. There's more. I believe it's a trilogy, but I just haven't felt called to read the rest of it. Sometimes I get just hooked and I rip through a whole fantasy series and I can't stop. I didn't quite feel that with Kushiel's Dart, but I did really enjoy it, and I just thought it was written really well. It had this very deep world with lots of political intrigue, which is really good. So would recommend that one. Number 12 is when I got to read the sequel to An Absolutely Remarkable Thing, which is A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor by Hank Green. I thought this was a really nice conclusion to the story. And like I said, it took a wildly different direction than I was ever expecting, and I thought it was really well done. It was complete and had a satisfying finish, and that is really all I can ask for in a book series. Okay, 13 and 14 are another duology that I read one after the other, and it is Strange the Dreamer and Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor. Laini Taylor is one of my favorite authors ever. She wrote Daughter of Smoke and Bone, that whole trilogy, which I don't remember if the trilogy had a name, but it was a fantasy story, and it had a just really nice, swoon-worthy romance plot that I love, and Strange the Dreamer is just the same. It's really good. It's got this big fantasy world with a big problem. It seems like there's always these cataclysmic events happening, and they're sort of resting on the shoulders of the two love interests, but it doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like a chosen one sort of thing. It feels appropriate for those two people to be at the center of this world-changing problem, and I just really liked it. I love the way that she builds up these romances, and I should mention they're not real sexy. They are sort of aimed at a YA level, and so it's really more about the tension and about the wanting to be together, and she gets the feelings just right. I liked it a lot. Number 15 was Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. This was a very, very old book. It was a very, very old set of journal entries by a Roman emperor, and he wrote about what he thought it was to be a good person, basically. I like this. It does talk about death a lot. The whole thing behind the Stoics is that we could all die at any moment, and so each moment, we should use the way that we want to use it and sort of, take control of what we can control. And so it did sort of set me on this existential path a little bit. But honestly, I was probably already there. Number 16 is How Long Till Black Future Month by N.K. Jemisin. And this is a collection of short stories. They're all at least a little bit sci-fi stories, and they all feature people of color as the main characters. No surprise there. It's pretty clear from the title. I loved these stories. They're all really good. They kind of have that grim, speculative thing going on that's like sort of Black Mirror-esque, but it's not excessive and it's not in every story. So it is like some of them are more hopeful than others. Some of them are a little bit more grim. It is just a good, well-rounded collection of short stories with a lot of flavors. I don't know, like they all had a unique feel, and I don't know, it just, they're really good. And it was fun to see. There is at least one short story that is the preliminary piece to the Broken Earth trilogy, meaning that she had written this story with these ideas and then developed them into the novels. And so it was cool to see the threads there where everything sort of connected up. Number 17 is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. And I liked this book. I thought it was really, really cute and fun. And it was a really quick read for me. It moved along very quickly. It had good pacing. But I do feel like it was a book that was just aimed a little bit lower than what I typically like in terms of maturity. So it felt much more high school to me than like, new adult or whatever. I'm not totally sure how they categorize these things, but it was really, really fun. I will say that it deals with the Day of the Dead and ghosts and a murder mystery, and it's a fun read, and it has just a little tiny bit of romance, which I like. I always look for romance when I'm reading. So number 18 was The Beginning of the End. The 18th book I read was The Black Prism by Brent Weeks. And this is the first of a 5-book series called the Lightbringer series. And it is very good. I'm just going to talk about the series as a whole instead of touching on each book, because I was checking these out from the library and I had to wait for all the books to become available because they were all on hold all the time. So I'm just going to talk about them all right now. This series is an intricate fantasy epic. The books are huge, the world is huge, the magic system is very detailed. There is an enormous cast of characters, and they all have like their own arcs. Like, there's not really any characters that seem to be like there specifically to help someone else out, or like they play like a little tiny part. They all feel whole and like they're learning and changing. There's also a lot of like world level political things happening. There's a war on, and I could easily see this getting adapted to TV and like becoming like a Game of Thrones level production. It was really, really good. I loved it. And overall, I was so into these books that by the time I got to the last book, I couldn't wait for it to come off hold at the library, and so I just bought it. So at this point, I only own the last book, which is kind of funny. And just a reminder, the series is called Lightbringer. That first book is called The Black Prism. If you want to just go put it on your Goodreads list real quick, I'll wait. Okay, moving on. Number 19 is The Girl in the Stars by Mark Lawrence. And I did actually read the sequel to this right after it as well. That one is called The Girl in the Mountain. And there is a third that is not out yet. It's called The Girl in the Moon, I believe. And so this series is about, it's apparently set in the same world as another book series that I haven't read called Red Sister. But it takes place in this world that is sort of just an icy wasteland. All the characters that we are aware of live on the ice. It's very bleak. There's not a lot of food. And they have this practice of sort of sacrificing weak children, so that the tribe can be stronger, you know? Like, there's basically the philosophy is that there's no room for weakness. You know, every person is consuming food and resources and heat, and so if they're not going to be able to ultimately survive, they, you know, cut them off early. And a lot of the questions in the book are about, like, is this good to do? Answer, probably not. But I don't want to get too into the plot because I don't want to spoil anything, but that's kind of the crux of the story. It's, there's a lot of philosophical chats between characters. I think it gets a little bit excessive, actually. Like, you have all of these children, they are children who are sort of weighing these life or death topics, and it just feels a little bit out of place sometimes. But in general, I like the books. I read both of them. I probably will read the third. Pretty well done. Book 21 was The Blinding Knife, which is the second book in the Lightbringer series. And then 22 is On Writing Well by William Zinsser. And this is a writing craft book that is specifically about writing nonfiction. And so it's a little bit different. I read a lot of craft books about writing fiction because that's what I'm most interested in doing. And so this was kind of a deviation from that. And I felt like a lot of his tips and his advice and his teachings were really good and definitely applicable to fiction. This is a very good writing craft book. It covers a lot of style stuff and sort of making your writing concise and powerful, which is something that I think the more you can cut out of your writing, the better. I might be a little bit aggressive in that sense, but it was really good. 23 was Grave Mercy by Robin Lefevers, or maybe Lefevers. I'm not sure how to say Robin's name, but it was a story about a young girl that was trained to be an assassin, sent away to court to, do her grim work. And I like this trope a lot. I think it's just really fun. The whole assassin training concept is really fun. I actually read this book because I was waiting and waiting and waiting for any of my library books to come off hold so I could read them. And it was taking forever. So I found this one. There were no holds on it. I read it in a single night. It was a quick, good read. It was historical fiction with like a layer of magic over the top of it. So it was based on real events, but obviously the magic was not real, unfortunately. And the characters, I believe, were either completely fabricated or partially fabricated, but I liked it a lot. Like I said, a good quick read. Book 24 is Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. This book was recommended by a co-worker because I was talking about if you could change your hair color at will, which color would you pick? And the main character can sort of do that. It is, there's like a hair color changing magic in this book. And because it's a standalone novel and it's a little bit older, there were no holds on it. And so this was another book that I grabbed because I simply had nothing else available for me to read from my list. And so I really like this book. It, for some reason, the main character reminded me so much of Princess Tiabini from Disenchantment. Like, that is all I could picture as I was reading, and so I just thought that was kind of funny. But in general, good book. I would love to read more Brandon Sanderson because I love The Way of Kings so much, and I just haven't felt like I had the time to go back and read the rest of the series that is out. I believe it's still in flight, so to speak, but yeah, I need to do that. Book 25 was Steering the Craft by Ursula K. Le Guin. This is another writing craft book. Not much to say about that, just that Ursula K. Le Guin is a master of the craft, and I feel like I learned a lot. And the next three books on my list, 26, 27, and 28, I'm not sure if I've been counting correctly, but these are all books in the Lightbringer series: The Broken Eye, The Blood Mirror, and The Burning White. So those are the last 3 books in the Lightbringer series, and they're the last books I have completely read this year. That puts me at 28. I am currently reading a book called The Deep by Alma Katz, or possibly Katsu. I tried to look up how to say Alma's name, and I could not find anything really definitive. But this is a book that I've had on my list for a while, so long that I forgot what it was supposed to be about and why I put it on there. I just started reading it. So I don't really know a lot about the book itself. What I do know so far from reading it is that the main character was on the Titanic when it sank and escaped. She survived. There's a little bit of conflict and backstory there. And then at the point that the book sort of picks up on the story, she's going on to the Britannic, which is a sister ship to the Titanic. I had to look it up because I'm very bad at history. It was a real ship, and it also sunk. So I feel like that's probably where the conflict of this story is going. Like I said, I do not remember the sort of blurb. I could reread it on Goodreads, but I thought I would just dig in and just see where it goes. So far, there have been hints at magic, like hints at something a little bit supernatural, but nothing specific. So we might go into sort of a supernatural historical fiction type of thing, or it could just be a drama about, being on 2 boats that sunk and hopefully surviving. I think, according to Wikipedia, most of the people on the Britannic did survive, because they had fixed a lot of the issues with lifeboats and, bad security practices and things like that. And so I'm feeling good. I'm feeling confident about her chances. But we'll see. So that would be book 29. And then I have a goal to read 30 books this year. So I'm really going to try. Let's see, today's the 18th as I'm recording this. It's probably not the 18th when I'm posting this because I have a different video going live today. But I'm going to try really hard to read that 30th book and check off my list. I'm pretty happy. I love reading. I'm so glad that I made time for reading this year. I really struggle. As much as I love reading, it's hard for me to prioritize that time, especially when I have so many other projects going on. And so I just feel really good. I'm so happy I read the Lightbringer series. I have actually loved Brent Weeks for years. He was the author of one of the first big fantasy series that I really got into as a teenager, which was the Night Angel trilogy, which was also about assassins. I just, love assassins. They're so cool. I probably wouldn't love them in real life, but in fantasy, very good. That's going to be it for this video. I apparently didn't finish the notes for the end of the video, but I think we're pretty much done. Thank you so much for watching. In the comments, tell me about the best book that you have read this year, or if none of them were particularly good, or if you can't decide, you can just tell me, did you meet your reading goals? I almost have. I'm gonna try really hard. Really hard. Okay, and with that, we're gonna call it here. I'll be back tomorrow with another video for Vlogmas. We're getting close to the end though. Goodness, we're really getting close. This month has gone by like that. So, thanks again. I hope you have a good day, night, whatever it is when you're watching this, and I will see you next time. Bye bye bye.